Hi, my name is Kevin McDonald, and I'm declaring my independence. Independence from what? Why, negative thoughts and energy, of course. Chief among them, hate, division, and fear. You see, I know that we're all one, and together we can solve any problem, save our planet and each other. Please, join me as we come together as one and choose a better way to be. So now, let's begin with my independence report. And welcome to this episode of Life Between Lives. This is a podcast that we are doing. Then we're doing it to entertain and also support you in your quest to understand what the hell happens when we die. And I want to introduce the two people that are here with me today. Natasha Venter, she is a psychic medium and also a life coach, and she helps you get through and clarifies. Angelic Clarification is her Angelic Clarifications is her website, and we're doing more work together, she and I, so you can also find her in my independence report. Regan Forston is also with us. He is a hypnotherapist of note. He is our scientist in the group. I'm just here just to bother you guys, but he's a scientist, and he works with hypnotherapy, and he puts people into really deep hypnosis using Michael Newton's theories and his program. There are literally hundreds of people that are doing this around the world. If you have a question about life after death, previous lives, life between lives, you need to go talk to this guy. He's just remarkable. It's a wonderful product that they're doing. And Michael Newton, go Google him, and he'll come up, and you can read all about his two books and go from there. And Regan's also an author and stuff. So enough of that. This is part 2 of many that we are going to do. And part 1 was about death and departing. What happens when we die? And then what do we do directly after we depart our body? And we talked, and in that episode, we're not going to regurgitate it here, but we talked about how long people stay around, what death is like for them, and so forth. And we stopped, and we were at the gateway, and what I would call the gateway to the other side. And so I guess with that, we'll just begin. Natasha, since ladies always go first, why don't we ask you, okay, you're at the gateway, what happens next?
Well, I wouldn't call it really a gateway. I would call it a greeting in my perception. And what I've seen, what I've heard, what I've been told, it's kind of a combination of everything, because my dad showed me things, angels have showed me things. So, and it's an individual path I've seen. No one is doing it alike, because it depends on who they were as a person, depends on, like we've said before, depends on how they get greeted. Sometimes when they've had a really rough life, sometimes it's an angel that greets them. And sometimes when it's, like a family member passing, like my dad, family members greeted, so it just depends on the individual. And I wouldn't call it a punishment if only an angel greets you. It's called an honorship, because they want to honor you for where you're coming from to where you need to mature into being the soul being that you were supposed to be and you're called to be. So it's that transformation from being, let's say, I'm going to call it, just because everybody knows Hitler. So like, let's say maybe Hitler didn't have a bunch of family members to greet him, but he had guardians and angels and explainers, I'm going to call them, to kind of help him transmission into the soul being that he was. Because I have an understanding that in every life, we've had many lifetimes, that every one of us had to be a bully, a bum, a rich person, so we've all had different times where we've had a murderer, you know, that we can't necessarily say that those were bad lives. They taught us something. And so we have to kind of know that each one of us has one of those. So when it's our turn to have that life, then we get greeted differently to help us merge into being our soul light being again.
Regan?
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of my understanding too. It's like all these things we're learning, a lot of people have different takes, but they're all very similar, you know, and it's not cookie cutter, you know, from what I found, you know, it's a lot of times there's like some people, I have one of my clients saw an angel, another one saw, you know, I guess she called her guide, but she said, I can't really tell if she called her she, but she says she kind of looks like she's both, you know, like androgynous, you know, yes. And would kind of come back and forth. And a lot of times I'll ask my clients, I'll say, well, ask them their name so we know what to call them as we're communicating. And a lot of times they'll give you the name, or you can tell they're just making up a name. And they go, well, you can call me whatever, you know, because like names aren't that important, but they know it helps us to be able to communicate by, you know, keeping things straight. So I've had some that it's a relative that passed away that meets them and takes them. You know, it's usually somebody that it's never somebody they're afraid of. You know, it's someone that always feel love, or they feel like it's a welcome greeting. You know, never had anybody that said, you know, that they saw something that was negative at all. It was always, wow, they're here. Some people like, oh, it's so-and-so. And then I'll ask, I'll say, well, who's that? And he goes, well, that's my guide, you know. I've been with him like hundreds of lives, you know, like it's a big reunion of sorts, you know. And others kind of don't recognize them, but they just feel love. So some of them, they just see, when I have them turn around and say, okay, now let's just turn around and look around and see who's there. And sometimes it's just like they'll see like stars in the background, like, and I'll say, well, let's get a little closer and see those stars. And they realize, oh, those are souls, you know, shining like stars. And then I'll say, well, is any of them shining brighter than the others? And they'll go, yeah. And I said, well, just drift over towards that. And when they do, they go, oh, it's an angel, or it's a guide, or something, you know. So I'll usually have them, because we're doing research, you know, so I'll say, well, describe, you know, what do they look like? And then we'll get descriptions and things. But it's just like Natasha said, it's a little bit of, you know, could be a little bit of everything, but it's good. Whatever it is really good.
Now, in our last episode, Regan,
I don't want to interrupt you, sweetie, but this is a perfect inlight for this, that I feel like I'm getting tapped, and I apologize for interrupting.
Inlight.
That there are some people have those death experiences where I'm hearing them saying, but I didn't have that experience. You know, where they had kind of a dark moment where they felt like they went through a personal hell and that kind of stuff. And I want to speak to them, because many times if we have a short death experience and we come back to life, many times those experiences are not necessarily to punish us, but it's to, I want to call it, reawaken our soul to be what it's supposed to be. And because we get so bogged down by life that we lose our shine, our brightness. And many a times you'll hear that the person who had that negative experience, not every time, and there's sometimes where it's unexplainable, but most of the time that they have had a life where they needed to have a shift in their lives. And I mean a shift. And it could have been that they were good people, but they were heading down a very negative path, being the light for everybody else that was negative, you know, and so they needed to be shifted out of that so they could have been the light. So I just wanted to give that the validation to those that don't have always a great experience and a short death experience, because sometimes it is for them to awaken. And I just want to give them validation, because I was hearing them in the background. So I apologize for that.
I think you're right. Like the problem, like when people have these short, like near-death experiences, I mean, the advantage that I have is that when I have people in trance, or it's this deep state, a few times they've seen something kind of negative, but then I say, okay, hold on a minute. let's talk about this. Let's have you go a little closer, whatever. Maybe I mentioned this when I was talking before. It was this guy's on the other side. This wasn't with me, but it was with another therapist. And he goes and he says, "Oh my God, there's the devil! There's the devil!" And he starts getting all scared. And then the therapist says, "Well, just hold on now, calm down. Nothing can harm you." He says, "Let's just go a little bit closer." He goes, "I don't know." He says, "Come on, just float a little bit closer." And then a few seconds later, he's laughing hysterically. And it was his guide that had put a little costume on with horns and things like that. And he said it was just playing a practical joke on him. Well, it turns out that the guy whose session it was a fire and brimstone preacher. And his guide said, "I'm just giving you something what you've been giving your people, you know." So, but every time that if we've had anything negative, when we push it a little bit further in this controlled thing, they get beyond that and they go, "Oh, it's okay." But a lot of times they say it's caused by our fears that we have in our consciousness. You know, like when you die, if you think you're going to hell, you may have some sort of hellish kind of feeling or something at the moment. But when you get beyond that, it's all good, you know.
Now, I'd like to run by both of you, because this is what I read in Dr. Newton's book, and I just want to verify and see what you guys think. We are pure energy, but unfortunately, this is a very, very heavy experience, and the experiences that we have in life can cause our energy to get stuck or misplaced or not in its primal state, the way it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we go to the other side and there's a moment in time to where we're not adapting well because our energy isn't correct. And so they have to take time with us for us to go someplace and have our energy redesigned or replaced so that it is back to where it's supposed to be. Because this can be, Dr. Newton talks about a guy that was in World War II that was blown up by a grenade, and his energy got all out of place, and so he had to take some time and to go to a place of solitude where they reconfigured his energy. Is that kind of the experience? Would that make sense to both of you or either of you?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, that's the most fun part of this Life Between Lives therapy that we do with people is at some point, usually in the beginning, when they're entering the spirit world, when we talk to the guide, I'll say, well, I asked the guide, I said, would it be good or helpful for them to go to a place of rejuvenation, you know, to prepare them? And every time they said, sure. And then instantly they're there, but it's different places. But I'll give you an example. The one that I really remember, it was so cool. I had a young man, Leo, that came to me. I brought him up before, I think, but his therapist, his doctor sent him to a therapist because they couldn't find any physical wrong. He was having about 26 seizures a day. And imagine he's 26 years old. He's a beautiful soul. I mean, he's sweet, he's kind. But I'll be talking to him, all of a sudden he'll go, and he's like that. And he's just totally out for a minute. And his mom came with him the first time because it kind of freaked me out because I've never had anybody go into a seizure right when I was in session with him. And she says, just wait it out, it'll be okay. And he goes unconscious for a bit, and then he comes back, and it's kind of like a person that just first wakes up, and then he realizes, okay, and then we go on. So when this guide said, sure, you can go to a place of rejuvenation, all of a sudden he sees this giant tree, and it's emanating all this energy, all these beautiful colors. And so he's in trance, and he's going, wow, oh, wow. And the guide says, go sit up against this tree. So I said, okay, go do that. So I'm kind of in my mind there with him. I mean, I'm kind of seeing what he's describing, but he's sitting there, and all this energy from this beautiful tree is going all over him. So after maybe 4 or 5 minutes, I said, well, are you rejuvenated? Are you ready to move on? He goes, I want to stay here. I want to stay here some more. So I just was quiet and let him. I said, let me know when you're done. A little bit later, he says, okay, I'm ready to move on. That experience affected him so much. For weeks, he's not an artist, but he was drawing trees, and he got his crayons out, and then he said, well, this is the best I could do about this. Is a few months later, and he sent me a picture of this tree that he kind of drew with these different colors and everything. Well, the nice thing about it is his seizures went down from 26 to about 3 per day. So when I get to Sacramento, I want to see him again because of what I've learned with this Dolores Cannon, the quantum healing hypnosis technique that I just finished the first phase of that, and so I have to start seeing clients. So I'm going to offer him a free session so I can maybe work with him some more, because now I know more how to get in touch with the subconscious to try to do some more healing. So.
Oh, that's
and I
awesome.
bet you, I really bet you if he would go and spend some time, and I'm getting like the redwoods or, something of like the cedars or something of that kind of that heavier trunk tree, that I bet you if he did that physically, then his soul and his wiring of his body might merge a little differently too.
There's something about that.
Tree is my savior. Because I can hold on to wire sometimes because I'm so electrical. And so I go stand by a tree and it's just like,
Yeah.
It's interesting that we're having this discussion, because the gentleman that I'm voicing the book for is talking about a tree, the life cycle of a tree. From wintertime through spring and its rejuvenation, and summer it's life, and then in the fall it slowly calms down and dies, and that doesn't die but goes dormant again, and the leaves die and they fall off and stuff. It's a really interesting story, and I'll tell more about that. But one of the things I mentioned to him was, have you ever gone up to a tree? And if you are listening to this and you haven't done it, I really want you to go do this. Is to go walk up to a tree and be quiet and just put your hands on the tree. You will feel, because I said this to him today, I said, you feel a vibration. And he said, you felt that too? It's like, oh, everybody feels that, because that's the energy that is surrounding all of us.
That life energy.
Yeah.
That life energy. And it's trees are big, and they emit this wonderful energy that is really great. So Natasha, when we were talking about that, you were nodding your head. Do you agree with Regan that is all part of it?
Oh, it is. It totally is that, many of us that, like I was talking to somebody who has that sleep paralysis when she first wakes up. And so I was telling her, are you in alignment with the contract between your body and your soul to come back together again every time you part? And she went, I never thought about that. So many of us are detached from, we all have tethers. I have an understanding from our body to our spirit. And like mine is really long. I mean, I can go out to the far off planet and then come back to my body. But it's stretched out. But many of us don't want to have that connection coming back in again. And so it's a very much of a shock. And that's why so many of us leave paralysis or epilepsy or something like that, because we're not totally connected coming in. And I bet you many of the people who have some kind of mental, like the seizures and stuff like that, you kind of wonder how they came into the body. Did they have a struggle being in mom's body? Did mom during pregnancy have, not blaming mom, life experiences, like heck, my parents passed at that time, so I could have had the same scenario if I didn't have the understandings I do. You only do what you know you can do. That many, if there's a drama during pregnancy, a lot of times those souls have a kind of a, should I go in? Should I go in? Type of feeling. And they spend their lifetime trying to figure out how to be here on this planet. And so there's that kind of scenario that a lot of us don't realize that, hey, make a contract. Every time I go to sleep, I say, come back to my body with grace and ease, because I want to wake up nicely. And I usually have a slight headache, but yet I'm good after just a short time, because that connection again.
Did you have a headache when you wake up? It's not because
almost
you drank
every
a lot
morning
the night before, did you?
No.
I'm just checking. And you know, the reason that I wanted to have this, that we're having this discussion, and why we're going to do more, is that for those of you who don't know, my brother has stage 4 cancer, and he's in the process of making that transition from this world to the next, and he's having some real trouble with it, because
And it's going to take longer because of that. I'm sorry.
yeah, because he doesn't understand, when what I want people to get from this series is that the transition is part of life. It's not this horrible thing. You don't have to worry about, well, and Forston, Regan, we talked about this before, that when you pass away, and you've done, your group has done over 50,000 sessions with people. And how many times has the devil showed up?
I don't ever, except if it's someone making a joke or something, never, because they'll tell you over there that the devil is he exists in a way that he exists, we invented him, and so we deal with what we've all invented and believe. But you know, once you get clear of here, there's no such thing. And people go, how can that be? When I say, well, there's correction. You know, they find it's not this burning in hell type thing, but there's ways that soul has to make up for, or adjust for the wrongs and things they've done. So in other words, the ultimate goal is, where everybody's reformed in a way, even though some souls are more stubborn than others and take longer maybe. But it's all about love and light. And so I think that's one thing that I don't have quite a whole, I'm just going by what a lot of other people say. I've never had an experience without any of my clients or anything, even a hint of negativity or anything like that. And when they ask that question over there, they just kind of snicker and they go, well, that's something you guys decided to deal with. So, and it kind of serves a purpose in a way, because it really gives a big contrast between yin and yang, good and evil, so that they can kind of, measure what if everything was good all the time, we wouldn't even appreciate it,
We wouldn't have something to bounce off of. And that's what I tell people. There's always going to be an opposite: up, down, left, right, in, out, light, dark. It doesn't mean that the dark is any bad. It's here to teach us, show us, and navigate through it. And like I was saying one time that, like my kid had a dark being in her bedroom, but she was always depressed, and something dark had to suck up the negativity in the room. So it wasn't necessarily dark because of it being bad. It was dark because of its job. And so it's just amazing how people have put fear into a lot of the belief system to help to kind of keep us in a box. Oh. And we're not meant to be in a box.
Yeah, so
my opinion.
Me too. Mine's kind of my opinion. I mean, in the 50,000 we've had, it's always been, we find out that, there's no hell like what we imagine in our mind, or with the fire and brimstone preachers thing, where you're going to have the flesh being burned off your bones in eternity and everything like that, But definitely, people end up, they end up in some form or another, going from being negative, selfish, and hateful people to loving and kind over a period of time, even if they have to come back, in a sense, suffer what we would call hell on earth, by going through a really rough life or something here. So that's why in the next few years, I want to really, and with the other therapists that are doing this, because people always ask me about that. And of course, people are so defensive about that. And I get some really pushback from some people like, oh, that's just, that's the devil himself trying to tell you that there's no devil. And so when you get to the other side, then the other shoe's going to drop and you're going to go to hell, that the work that Natasha and I are doing is the devil's work, and that's the only explanation they can come up with, But the thing is, I say, well, if you experience this for yourself, it just goes away, it just goes away.
Absolutely. Well, in his case, He is what you would call a fundamentalist Christian. And in that religion, in there, it's like you will go to heaven or you'll go to hell if you
Yeah.
believe enough. His problem is, how much is enough? That's the fear that is coming through for him, because I think I'm a good Christian. I think I do this well, but is that enough?
Right.
And so that creates the fear that is residing within him of, I don't know if it's enough or not. I just as soon stay here because I know what this is and I don't know really what that is.
That is. Mm-hmm.
And I'm scared to death to know what that is, because it may not be everything that it's cracked up to be. And so I'll just, even though I'm in a lot of pain, I'll just stay here. So what we're trying to do here is to get rid of that fear, to let you know that it's okay. When you pass away, it's okay. Now we've gotten to the point of where most near-death experiences end, where they go over and they have an experience, or they meet their guides and they talk to their family, and then somebody says, nope, you're not ready, you got to go back, and so then they return. We're going to go further into the other side and further into what happens to us next. Natasha, what do you think?
Well, the next I would say is that there again, it's just that individual walk that we all go through. And I'm going to give an example of my own parents. I had my dad and my mom pass away within 3 years of each other, 4 years of each other. And my dad, like I was saying before, always had one foot in this world, one foot in the other world. You know, he just had a knowing. And so for him, walking from this body form spirit to spirit form no body, he just kind of went, okay. I mean, he didn't want to leave us. It wasn't like an, okay, I'm free to go. It was more about, I have an understanding that I'm okay going where I'm going to.
Right.
My mom had more of a fear of where she was going to. You know, the last week of her life, I couldn't hear what she said because she had no stomach muscles with Lou Gehrig's disease to push air out. And so, you know, I would be up to her ear trying to hear her. Well, I was in the other room and she says, I'm not going, you're not taking me. And it took her another week to pass because she had that religious based of belief system, where my dad had a spiritual base with religion knowledge that was in him. And it's not right or wrong. And I'm not labeling that religion or non-religion stops us or starts us, but it's just where sometimes when we get bogged down in our mind about the box of what religion wants us to be, it doesn't make our soul what it's going to be, which is light. And so I know for my mom, going back, the journey afterwards was more of a, you know, the angels, my dad, family members would take her hand and kind of walk her through. For, you know, in my lifetime, it was about a year. In hers, it was probably weeks, days, moments. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And so with that, my dad, he basically went with himself saying, hey, buddy, how you doing? Put his arms around people, you know, and just went, you know, because he just was part of the group. You know, it wasn't like he didn't have to go gently. And so for my mom, it took her a little bit longer to go through I'm going to call it the shock wave, the reality wave, oh, this is what's going on with me now wave, whatever you want to call that time after the greeting to the integration. It just depends on who we are, what our soul is. My mom was a very tender soul. She was a very tender light soul. And so she had a lot of like if she felt a lot of things, you know, she was very empathetic about people. So if somebody was sad, she would get sad for them. So her soul took a lot on when she was alive. My dad had, he was very sensitive too, but he had kind of more of a buffer. That's yours. This is mine. I can help you, but I don't have to take you on. He had kind of more that understanding. And so for him, he didn't have to go through kind of a supportive of the soul cleansing of life's journey. It's not like a car wash cleansing, but it's kind of like just this is what happened. This is how you can relieve yourself of it. Was the reason for the experiences, where my dad didn't have to have that. So those are two different forms. Now you have if you're talking about them being here in the center, you have everything going out from there on different experiences from there, but that's two different perspectives that I've seen just in my own life. And my uncle, who passed away 3 years after that, he kind of was a little bit in between. He had that same journey, more like my mom than my dad.
Right. Well, Regan, according to Michael Newton, it also depends upon the age of the soul or its development as to if they leave quickly and they are anxious to go home, or they're kind of wandering around because they're not quite sure what to do next. Isn't that what he said? Yeah,
I've had him from just go from a past life, and then I'm starting to get him to turn around, see there, and then they'll say, "I'm already there, Regan," and this I think did I mention before on the other show about the I think I did now, because he's a medium too, and he just went he calls them Merlin, his master or teacher over there, and he says Merlin's like a taskmaster, and he was one of 8 souls that they don't even go to soul group anymore. They're advanced souls. They meet with this group that are like all about going places to make change. So he and 7 other souls there were like a black, he called it black ops, coming down to earth to in their way to make these changes and everything. So yeah, and before since we're doing different shows on things, I wanted to mention about the trees again before I forget. It was interesting that the first, except when I was little and had the out-of-body experiences when I was 4 years old, and then it didn't happen until I was in my 20s. My first big experience was I went to sleep. I was doing a spiritual word, the Hu, H-U. It's like an ancient name for God that has like Om, but Hu is a very vibrational word. So I was practicing that because I just wanted to see if I could do astral travel or do something. And about 6 weeks after doing that, I went to sleep. All of a sudden, I'm out of my body and I'm in this world, and I didn't notice until I'm looking at myself on here. It was skies like this yellow, kind of yellowish kind of skies. And I was about 100 feet above the ground, and that's when I realized, wow, I don't have a physical body. And I realized I was energy because I was seeing 360 degrees, and what I was looking at, and as I looked at them, I felt like buckets of love got dumped over me. It was like wheat fields, but there were these giant trees. I call them oak trees because it's the only tree I know that's kind of stubby and big and everything like that, but it was more massive than that. So when I saw those trees, and then I felt this love and everything, and then I became aware of my body back on the bed, and I went like, oh fuck, I'm out of my body. Like that. I went, oh my God. And boom, I was, I came back like that. And it affected me so much. I immediately got up and I wrote it down and everything. And when these things happen, I'm going to make this a shorter story because it's more to it than this. But 15 years later, I was still remembering this experience because it was so big. It really put me on a really spiritual path. But my mind was going, did that really happen? I've told it so many times and thought about it. Maybe it's just my imagination, or maybe it wasn't real or something. And so I said to God, I wish some kind of miracle, instead of it being when I'm asleep or having an out-of-body experience or something like that, I wish, like I've heard other people, have these miracles that happen right here in this life, this physical kind of thing. So a few weeks later, I was performing at the California Frog Jump Angels Camp, where they have frogs from all over the world that see how far they can jump. I think really they still have it. In California. Yeah, and I was a clown then, and I was had a magic stage show, and right after me every show was this Columbia storyteller who was dressed up like like they did in the 1800s, you know, really authentic looking. Everything he had was authentic, beard. He would tell these stories, you know, about the miners and that time. And if people would just listen to him, because he was such a good storyteller. We became good friends. Long story short, he asked my wife and I to come visit him and his wife because we became friends. So we did that a few weeks later. We had a nice weekend. I'm getting ready to get in my car. We hadn't talked about anything spiritual or anything. And I'm starting to get in my car and I felt a hand on my shoulder. And he says, Regan? And I said, what? And he says, and I turned around, he says, I think you need to tell me something. And I'm going, what's going on here? You know, he says about your dream. This thing about the oak trees happened 15 years ago. When he said about my dream, I just said, what color was the sky? He said, yellow. And I said, what was I looking at? He said, you were looking at the big, beautiful, like trees. I said, like oak trees? And he goes, yeah. My knees buckled and he had to kind of hold me up a little bit because it was like, oh my God, you know. He took me back inside and he said, if you have the second part to the dream, I said, I don't know, what is it? And he says, I can't tell you. You'll know when you have it. But it seems that he has a long lineage, but he says his ancestors went way back to the Magi. And he says he doesn't understand it either, but when he's with people, he knows if they've had this experience of being in this beautiful place with the yellow skies and the tree, and it's some sort of awakening or spiritual dream is what I could tell. So that made it really real to me. I said, okay, I'm never going to ask you for a thing again. You just proved that this is all really real, you know. So it's neat that sometimes when you need it, God will give you that kind of, you know, that like we talked in one show, you know, we'll talk about these miracles that happen, we call waking dreams or God sightings. These little miracles that happen and how they communicate with you from the other side. So anyway, something magical about trees, you know. Oh, and one more real quick thing with my one of my other clients, when they went to a place of rejuvenation, she's in the desert and there's a sand and she's just laying back in the sand. And I said, what's going on? She says, oh, it's kind of uncomfortable. And then I asked the teacher there, I said, well, ask him what's happening. And he said, well, you're uncomfortable because the sand is like filtering. It's like going through your beingness and pulling out all of the negativity. And, you know, like sand is what they use for pools, you know, to clean all the dirt and everything out. And then all of a sudden she looks next to her, she's holding hands with the woman that she was in the life she just was that other part of her, because she had a really bad life, this, you know, when she experienced her past life. So she was holding her hand and they were both getting healed. So I thought that was really cool. And I said, are you done yet? And she says, well, I'm feeling pretty good, but I'm going to stay here with her for a little bit if it's okay, because I'm holding her and helping her. And then pretty soon they were okay. And, you know, that was neat. And the other big one I get a lot of times is a waterfall. Like they're in this pond and there's this beautiful waterfall and they're like feeling the water coming over and cleansing them. And in each of these cases, they usually they want to just stay there. And after the session, they say that was the coolest, most invigorating thing that we did on the whole trip to the other side, you know. So yeah, that seems to be like when you were bringing it up, it seems like there's this purification process sometimes that souls need to go through because they just had a hard life, you know. They got to, like, you know, put on some clean clothes, you know.
Now I want to talk about the part that happens next, and sometimes it happens with near-death experience, and it always happens after you pass away, and it can be rather uncomfortable, and that is your life review.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Natasha, talk about your understanding of the life review.
Well, the life review is that, and this is where when I'm doing sessions, people kind of go, that's my dad talking now, because we did not get along at all in this lifetime. I go, he knows different now. He just knows different now. And there again and I'm going to go back to Hitler. You know, he has to go through a life review. What were we supposed to learn from this? And many of us that go into those roles choose to be teachers. And teachers are not always have the gracious lives, you know, and it's a contract that we do. But going back to that life review, it is kind of like my image of getting it, because I've actually done it in this form different times when I've had to kind of almost stop that book. I always treat life like a book, well, that book's done, time to start a new one. And I kind of do a personal life review, and it's almost like I'm standing there, and it's almost like there's a screen in front of me, and it's just kind of going by.
Mhm.
And some people it's different. It's this way. Sometimes they have to be more surrounded by it because individual work is different. Each soul is its own individual experience. And if we haven't made that clear, I hope we do make it clear that it's an individual experience of love. So with that we do go through this visionary there's always an angel in your ear. There's always somebody in your ear saying, this is why. This is why. And sometimes at the beginning of a review, there's the angst of a humanness that we kind of go, oh, did I do that? And the angels go, you're okay. It was purposeful. I'll show you why it was purposeful. And so with that there's these understandings that kind of come through, that many times that many people, when they pass away, let's say in their 80s, they forget that they were abused by an uncle that set that seed of emotion that tagged along with them their whole life, that they didn't know why they were so angry, and they were angry to everybody. And they go back and they see, oh, if I would have known how to deal with that emotion better. And that's one thing that I say in a lot of my sessions. At the time that your dad was a child, remember what the 50s, 60s, 40s were like. Men were not allowed to have emotions. And so nobody taught them to be able to cry, to feel the angst, the pain of being abused when you were younger. And then you carry that through your whole life. And there's this always kind of bubbling out because you don't take care of something, it comes out, type of thing. So I would just want people to know that no matter what that vision is, that how they get that life review, that there's always somebody with a hand on your shoulder, hand around your waist, hand around, just whispering in your ear instantly. So as soon as that soul has any, there's always that, it's okay. There again, seeing beyond what that first seeing is. They always go beyond what that trauma was to say why.
Regan?
Yeah, well, everybody so far that I've had in the last 2 years that I've done this Life Between Life session with, we ask if they could go before the council. And they say, sure, boom, you're there. And then I have them explain, like in Michael Newton's books, we ask them, okay, can you explain the layout, what's going on? And it's generally, they're like in the center, and there's like a table in front, like a meeting table. Sometimes it's round or curved, but it's usually on the same level. It's not usually higher. And there'll be anywhere from 3 to 7 or 8 beings at the table, and they're what we call the elders or the wise ones and stuff. And I have my people prepare a list of questions, and because they're there, as me as a facilitator, I keep them focused, and I'll say, okay, now you want to, ask them, why did you decide to be born? What's your life's mission? How are you doing in your mission? That sort of thing. A few times, a few people, when they're in trance, and I said, do you want to go before the council? And they go, oh, I don't know. They're going to be all mad at me. All this, oh, I don't know. And I say, no, don't worry about it. And anyway, boom, they're there. And it's never judgmental. It's like what people realize is they are their biggest judge. They know what they've done wrong. And a soul on that side, they're beyond fear, all this stuff, so they know what they need to do to correct themselves. So sometimes they'll say, I need to put myself in timeout for a while, don't I? They says, well, if you think you need to, And then some people go to like a limbo or like a place where they can rejuvenate, where they can kind of work on the things that that they failed in this life to do. But they're never like, open the door, send them to hell, well, you mean, whatever. It's always love and kindness. And the thing is, though, a life review can come. When Natasha was talking about, you can get a life review sometimes with a lot of people in this lifetime. And it happened to me just one time. I went on a meditation retreat, at a Buddhist place, no, excuse me, this was a thing called Warrior Monk, and it was a non secretary. I mean, we had Sufis there. We had a rabbi that was there. We had people that were born again Christian. We had people that were just spiritual. It was everybody there. And during the week, we shared the practices of, we did like the whirling dervish things. We were taught that by the Sufi. And then the rabbi talked about some stuff, but we did the Kyrie eleison, the chants from the Christian chants, that I grew up in Catholic, that we did in church and everything. Well, anyway, at one point, this lasted like 7 days, but on the sixth day, they took us to our room, had a pitcher of water, and they says, okay, now you're going to go in here and you're going to meditate constantly until we knock on the door. Well, it all has this pitcher of water. So I sat there, started doing the meditation. At some point in there, all of a sudden, I'm kind of beyond myself. And there's all of a sudden, like there's a man right in front of me, and it scared me because he's like this close to my face, And I just realized that was somebody that I had said something unkind to. And I had to feel the pain that I caused him. And that went on and on and on, which seemed like forever. It seemed like everybody in my life that I had done something and caused, I had to feel with the pain that I caused them. But I'm in this trance kind of because I'm meditating and I've gotten to this point. So, I'm kind of realizing what's going on at the same time. But it was kind of a good thing though. I mean, I felt that pain and everything, but I knew what was going on. I knew that it was for me to look and see, could I be a better person? Anyway, then I hear a knock on the door. It was like 36 hours later. And it felt like an hour. I swear it was like 36 hours. It was just unreal. It was one of the coolest things I ever did. But they call it Warrior Monk. People can look up on the internet. It's through the Mankind Project. And during this whole week, you examine your life, find out what your mission is, come up with a mission statement, and then they have counselors. You work with each other to find out what's keeping you, what's holding you back from your mission. And they have this psychological way they have that, oh man, there was so much crying and screaming and yelling, people really seeing why they weren't doing their mission, and then you keep working and working until they can say, okay, on this date, I'm going to have this done for my mission. And the counselor will say, any doubts? And if you can't answer instantly, no doubts, then that means something's going on. And they probe further and you find some other, it was really magical, But that life review really helped me because it made me more aware that everything I do, I'm going to get it back.
There's a ripple effect. I'm instantly going, and Kevin probably has witnessed this. As soon as I feel that ripple effect that I've done something, even if it wasn't in negativity or in intention, I try to do that because I can feel that ripple effect almost right away of me being it's almost like throwing a rock in a pond and that ripple effect. I just feel that ripple effect that I could have shifted their day because of who I was in my moment, even if I was just off, and I just said something short, it doesn't have to be negative, and there's no wrong or right. We have to be those beings. Sometimes we have to say those negative things to help others shift what they're doing. Sometimes we're the angel and the messenger that has to be the.
It's a little complicated, isn't it? Sometimes
people call me a lot of times, Natasha, are you my life of reason or my voice of reason?
Oh, and what you mentioned about when you said that that person you were talking to, Natasha, that said, oh, he's talking to me nice now. I don't understand this because he's always mean or something. Mm-hmm. I get that a lot when people are on the other side and they go to their soul group, which would be another session we can talk about. But all of a sudden they're there and there's their mom and dad who have passed away. And I remember the look on one of my clients' face and they go, they're getting along. Like, I don't get it. They're not yelling at each other, and they were just the mom and dad were lovey-dovey over there. And she finally saw that they had contracts to come down and do this divine sandpaper with each other to help themselves grow. Once they got on the other side, their contract's done, then it's party time,
Yeah.
Hey,
we're done.
High five, you sure were a good bitch there. Oh, it's so cool. And yeah, you were sure being bastard to me. Yeah, look what we learned, kind of like,
Yeah, we're going to talk about next time.
Yeah.
On my independence report, we're going to talk about what it's like when you're living on the other side, because we have a home that we go
Mhm.
to, we have friends, we have
Mhm.
a group of folks that love us and take care of us, and it's really is a beautiful place to be, and so there's
Yeah,
nothing to be fearful of at all.
not at
But
all.
I did want to say from my perspective on the life review. See, I'm looking forward to my life review because there was a particular time in my life when a particular day, a particular football game, as it happened to be, that I was playing, and the football game, I had a magical day, and a couple of sacks, a couple of fumble recoveries. I had so many tackles that the stadium announcer said, "Tackle made by guess who."
Oh.
And
That
so
had to feel good.
I was thinking to myself, I really, since I lived it and didn't get a chance to see it, I really want to see what that's like, kind of like watching a movie and stuff. And then it dawned on me that what I got was, no, what I'm going to get is I'm going to be the guy that I kept beating up on the entire game and got past him.
Oh,
Oh,
no,
And
no, no,
then,
no, no. I would say quite the opposite, because a life review doesn't mean that's the perception that people want to put negativity on so many things. Life review isn't all negative. It's a life review. We have good, we have bad, we have, shifts, we have this, that we have that. And Archangel Michael, Kevin, is laughing because he was on that on that football field with you having fun. You two were teammates on that day.
oh, it was classical, but I just figured that because it was I was having such a good time. The guy that was on the offensive line that was on the other side was having an equally bad day.
yeah.
There again,
You're putting it
opposites.
to them.
But I kind of figured that I'd get to see what it was like for him to go back to his coach who was yelling at him. I saw him yelling at him on the sidelines and stuff like that. So it was like I would get to see that. But maybe not.
And a lot of it probably has to do with your frame of mind when you were hitting him. If you were going like, "Oh, I hate this bastard. I'm gonna give him pain," or if it was more, you're just doing your best to be the best tackler or whatever position you were playing that you can. That's it's part of the game.
I was a nose guard, but you see but the difference was I didn't care anything about him because he was not my goal. My goal wasn't to mess around with him. My goal is to get around him.
Yeah,
I didn't.
yeah.
Care. But
I think you're going to be fine.
But
I think you're going to be fine.
But the life review is something, because you're right, Natasha, in that it's
a good
like
thing.
I've had one. I'm 63 years old, so how long, Regan? How long does it take to do a life review? Is it a long time, or is it kind of flash and is it instantaneous?
It's well, when I have people over there and they're talking about everything, that part of it is just kind of minimal. It's like no big deal. It's just like, well, just picture like if you had a really good coach. I mean, the really good coach isn't going to be destructive to you. He's going to in a constructive kind of way. He's going to say, this is what you did wrong and this is what you should have done and this is how you can do it better. Like a loving father, rather than a evil punishing father or something.
Right.
And that's what we find, and Tasha probably the same way with the experiences over there. It's just, I just say it's just love and light. I mean, it's all about, let's help. One thing that I heard this week in this other training I'm doing with the Dolores Cannon thing with the quantum healing thing is that when they've asked the souls on the other side that are these healers that are helping heal people, they said, well, who are you guys? And they said, we're you. We're just gone a little further than you and we can help you now. And it really made it not seem like, because usually when they're doing these seances and someone's channeling somebody, it's like there's something, and it's just us when we're over there trying to help people that are over here.
And that's the role that my dad is playing. Whenever I check in where my dad is, like right now, if I check in with my dad, he's down in South America helping somebody. What I mean? Because he's always been him and I both are a lot in the same elderness of our souls, very old souls. And so where my mom was, we've spent many lifetimes together as a team, but she's just a little bit younger of a soul. So she had a different journey coming back in. And it's just amazing to watch how we help each other. Souls aren't about judgments or anything like that. It's basically, we're here to support each other. And that's where it's kind of frustrating for me, is if we could just support each other more on this planet, we wouldn't have such a hard time shifting over.
Yeah, they said too that on the other side there's no fear. That's a human thing down here. So can you imagine yourself right now if you had totally no fear and just love coming through yourself, and how different you would look at the world and how cool it could be, even with all this crazy stuff going on around. So
well, none of that would matter. Well, and in fact, the reality is that none of it matters anyway. We tend to put a lot of value and stuff on what matters while we're here alive, but it doesn't, in the grand scheme of things, none of it matters, because you're going to be, your life continues after you go. After you die, it continues, your energy continues, and this grand stage play that we're in, it ends, and you get to go on, and then you get to come back and set up a new, it's like setting up a new script. This is what we're doing. But we're going to talk about what is
that'd be a good program just to talk about that.
Yep. Well, next time, what we're going to talk about, for those of you that are listening, the third one is going to be, what's it like to just live over there with your soul group and to have fun, and what do you do over there for fun and enjoyment and stuff. And then we're going to talk about, okay, after a period of time, they start saying to you, we think maybe that you need to go and learn some more. And don't you think you've been here long enough that it's time to go, go back and learn some more lessons and to better yourself as a soul? And of course, I'm going to go kicking and screaming, because once I get over there, if everything is as described, I'm not going back.
And I'm gonna put a statement in here, and women can understand this better than men probably, but it's kind of like, we have one kid through our body, and then we choose to have one later. It's kind of one of those things that are, after a while, the soul goes, the soul kind of goes, okay, because it's just time again. You should see the lineup of souls that want to come back in.
Oh, I can imagine. Well, right now, it would be a perfect time to come back, because we have virtually everybody's got indoor plumbing.
Yeah.
Almost.
You go to the grocery store, you don't have to go kill what you're going to eat and figure out how to do that. You go buy it at the grocery store. You've got indoor plumbing, and
I'm really hoping it stays that way.
I know. Who knows, right?
We're
going to see.
Well, we shall see. So, Natasha, is there anything you'd like to add before we conclude this episode?
Well, I would love to give people the idea that most of our hell is in our perception of what life is about. I watched the show Lucifer that was on channel, our local TV show, and then it went on to Netflix. He was a perfect example of the negativity of life, that, like he said, it's all perspective, and then he showed us a scene about hell, and it was us reliving the thing that we did. Like if you shot somebody, you just kept reliving that moment. And I said, that is a total great perspective on our personal hell that we live through as we review and keep kicking ourselves in the bottom because we keep doing something. Well, it's that part of saying, I'm perfectly imperfect. I'm going to try to make it right in the steps that I'm doing today. Be kind, be willing to know that my ripple effect does affect other people. And how do I want that ripple effect to be? Is it going to be loving, or is it going to be damaging? And so with that, I just hope that when we throw the rock in the pond, that we can send more love around the world than we could, that self-hate, the self-infliction, and just know that we are perfectly imperfect, made to learn lessons and experiences in this life. Actually, I hate the word lessons. It's kind of like, I just want to have experiences, and my perception helps me to live through either the negative of it or the positive of it.
Yeah, besides, you said bottom. What happened to butt, ass, something like that?
That's St. Peter.
Oh, gotcha. Regan, but no, Regan, anything you'd like to add before?
Well, yeah, I just want people to know they're listening to this, that the veil between here and the other side is becoming paper thin for a lot of people now compared to how it was. And somehow God's allowed us to find, this process, through the Newton Institute, where just want everybody to know that if you want to find out why you were born, what your mission is, you want to visit anybody that's passed away, you want to talk to people, the soul part of people that's in heaven, that's in your life right now, you can have conversations with them even. It's an easy process to go through. It's pretty much available all over the world now. You just have to you can go to the Newton Institute website and find somebody in your area. I do all California. It's something should be done in person pretty much because it's a pretty deep thing. But about, I think 84% of the people that attempt it have a very successful thing. So, if you are inclined to that, you can see up there to visittheafterlife.com. Just go, there's some videos. You can see someone going through the whole process actually. And there's stuff about reincarnation and everything on there. And if your spirit says, maybe I should do this, just want you to know it's available. So I had the experience and a lot of others too. So over 50,000 so far. So, and add, like I'm learning with Dolores Cannon, who did similar work to Michael Newton, they've done another 50,000. So we're up to over 100,000 people now that have been able to go to the other side, like having the near-death experience controlled, have a beautiful experience, come back and help that enliven their life. And it does.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because we have two different ways of doing it, either through the spirit way or through a hypnosis way, and that's the way that the universe after we live here is. It gives us choices on how do we want to negotiate it, and I love to help people through it, and Regan, I know you're good at what you do, so it's just on how people are comfortable doing it. I personally cannot go under hypnosis. I don't get allowed to do that. So I do it in other ways.
Yeah. Well, and someone doesn't need to do it if you just believe, because there's been so much research that that's what happens, then maybe you don't even need to do it. You just can relax and know that you're okay. You know that you're here for a purpose, but you probably know what it is. You just maybe need to really maybe find out why you're not doing all that you should be doing. Which we all kind of know. So that's what, some people go there like, we all don't need to go to the Amazon rainforest to know that it's there. There's been enough people to go there and say, this is what's there, and you would know what to expect, So people that have had the past life regressions experience it, maybe you don't need to go to a past life, but you'll know it if you want to. Your spirit side will have you say, hey, we should maybe call Natasha or get a hold of Regan and do something about it, So we're here, both of us, all of us here.
Awesome. Because see, from my frame of reference, I have accessed both of your fine abilities. Not you personally, but I have done mediumship with people, and I've done hypnosis with people. All of it is very, very solid. It's all very practical. But my advice to you, to those people out there, is live your passion. Your passion is what you're here to do. And if you follow your passion, follow your heart, and your heart is genuine and it's all good, that's the direction you're supposed to go. One of these days, I'd like to do, like, I don't know, maybe a podcast or something. That would be really cool. And so that would be fun to be able to do something like that. So you're supposed to laugh at that, guys.
I'm trying to think, okay, is this a joke or has he lost his mind? What the heck are you doing right now?
Well, considering you have two journeys with me.
Well, exactly, and I found out that in a past life I was with Custer when he was massacred, so that was fun. That not at the time, I wouldn't imagine, but
no, you struggled very much during that time. It was not your calling, but it was your duty.
Yeah, exactly. With that, for Natasha Venter, and your website is angeliclarifications.com. and Regan Forston, and yours is, I can't see.
Visittheafterlife.com.
There you are. Visittheafterlife.com. And you'll find this on My Independence Report and also on YouTube. So I hope that you will enjoy and go to both of those things. You know, listen to this stuff. It's not fantasy. We're not nuts.
Nope.
It's true.
Right.
And actually, for me, it's personally given me grace to know that you know, I'm okay. There's no judgment on the other side, so I just have to work on my own judgment
Exactly.
and make sure I'm doing the right steps.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because there's somebody out there. Those people are nuts, but we're not. It's real.
Yep.
And next time we're going to talk about, okay, what do you do on a Saturday night on the other side? We'll talk about that next time.
Yeah.
There is no Saturday night. It's always Saturday night.
Yeah, wait till you get to hear what this one client of mine did for entertainment over there.
Oh,
It was pretty cool.
That'll be fun. So thank you everybody for
Okay.
listening to this, and you take care of yourselves and be kind.
All right, Kevin.
to yourself. Be nice to everybody else.
Bye, Natasha.
Bye.
Have a
See
great
you
day.
guys later. Okay. Bye.
Bye bye. And thank you so much. And we're going to